HK VP9. We're going to be putting in this VP9 long slide optics ready. So I'm going to show you a couple things here. It's a little confusing from the factory, but we'll figure it out together. I do have two Trijicon RMRs. I had these, one for a shotgun, one for a rifle, and I'm switching stuff around now. So these are actually type 1 for those of you who are Trijicon aficionados. This is the older style that was used mostly for rifles but can be used for pistols. I've had these for a few years and decided that I was going to get the long slide kit and throw one of them on there. I also have a Vortex Venom. We'll talk about that more in another video. So I think this is the number 7. See there, it says RMO7 and 6.5 MOA, and then I also have an RM01. So this is the one that's auto. It's got like the shake and bake where you turn it on. Well, you shake and then it turns on, and it's got battery saving. This number 7 that I have is got these plus minus for control, and then you hold them both together and it turns off. So they've both been pretty good. The RM01 is a 3¼ MOA. They come with some screws, and then the Duracell, this is the battery to use, the Duracell 2032. So some of the people noticed that there was flickering on pistol use, and one of the ways to help address that is to bend this tab forward a little bit. Don't be too rough with it to avoid breaking it. So you bend that tab forward a little bit, make sure you use the 2032, and then the last thing is to, you could put a little piece of electrical tape there just to get that battery so it sits tighter in there and it doesn't bounce around. So the mount that I could find, these mounts are very difficult to find for the HK VP9 optics cut. So this is not, there's another style you can get where you take your rear side out, you pop your rear side out, and then you put a dovetail sight in that the RMR sits on. So that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about for slides that already have an optics cut in them. This is the Evolution Gunworks. This is an American company. I ordered this from them. This is the Trijicon, or the RMR plate for HK number 2. This is not a factory plate, but it is comparable to the factory plate, and this is made by EGW. EGW makes a lot of other cool stuff. For those of you that reload or want to get into reloading, they make these really cool case gauge checkers, and they say they use the actual style or the reamers that barrels are made with, so they're pretty accurate. I've been very happy with those. So I also bought a bunch of these for different calibers, and then I saw that they had this optics plate. So I did order an extra set of screws. HK recommends that you replace the screws every 2,000 rounds, so it's good to have an extra set. So here's the plate. The only thing that I've noticed really different is HK has a stamping or an engraving or whatever it is on theirs that says 2NM with an arrow pointing to each of these holes, meaning that they recommend that 2 Newton meters be used for the torque setting for the 2 screws there. So I will be using the RMR01. Again, that's a type 1, not a type 2. So what you need for this is going to be a Torx bit, and that's number 10, and then a torque wrench with a 1/4 inch drive and the 1/4 inch socket, and that will fit all of your screwdriver accessories essentially. If you have, you might have a Torx socket. I didn't look that closely for one, so I just grabbed my little screwdriver deal here. So here is the kit. The long slide kit comes in this nice little box. Shipping was very good. I got this from the HK USA website. They had a pretty good price on it. If if you guys need some help, there is a discount code that I can give you. It hopefully is still working if they have these in stock. So one of the things about this is it's long. So it is longer than the regular slide. It's about an inch longer. Everything else is the same except you see here there's a cut, and has a longer barrel, and it has much taller suppressor sights, and these sights are made by XS. You can see the front dot and the rear black, but they are taller than the stock sights. So that's the big difference there, and it has a longer recoil spring, I've noticed. So but the kit is just basically you slide it on and you lock it into place and it's good to go. Very nice, very convenient. So you can see it lines up right with my pistol light. And then this has the competition style O-ring, machine finish on the barrel. So just for comparison, a little hard to hold there, but that's about how much longer it is. It also has these lightning cuts. You can see there's 2 screws for this plate. And then, I don't know if you can see that there, but it says XS HD. That's the sight. So it should be able to co-witness with these sights. And then the kit has spare O-rings. And that's it. Very basic, straightforward. You just basically throw it on there and it's good to go. So very similar here. It's just a little bit longer recoil spring. I'll take the barrel out and show you guys that. So there's the additional barrel length. And you can see that machine finish, and looks like there's a little bit of machining here. Everything else appears to be the same. Just got these 2 screws out on the optics plate cover, and you can see there they had blue Loctite, but it breaks free fairly easily. You don't need to use heat. It's not really like red Loctite. So I broke these 2 screws out, and that was with T10. I got this multi-tool here, Husky T10, and the plate just pops off. There's a lubrication, and then again you can see the Loctite. There's also a pin under here. I think that's your extractor pin. So if you ever needed to service that, you'd have to get this off too. So we're going to clean out this Loctite in here. So I got these threads cleaned out. Use some Q-tips, this little wood in here, and you can just pop out that blue Loctite and just make sure you don't get it anywhere else. And I use a little rubbing alcohol to clean those threads up. So that looks pretty good there. So this plate, I mean, you'll figure it out. There's only really one way it can go on, and that is just like that. You can see it there. It sits flush. It's machined really nice. It's a quality product. I'm going to leave this lube underneath here that HK had. That'll make it easier to remove, and then also provide some protection. So yeah, this just sits in here. Then the screws that came off of the plate cover go back in here, and the torque setting for that is going to be 2 Newton meters, which is like 17 point something foot-pound. These should be thread locked, so don't forget to do that. But just give them a little test fitting. Just make sure you got the right screws and they thread in and don't interfere. So what you should do here is test fit everything. I have read, there's one guy online, you can find him by Google searching. He had some problems. I think what he was screwing up was he was using the different screws, and he wasn't torquing properly. Because one thing I will tell you is they say look at the manual, but the manual is very confusing. They don't give a torque setting, and I think the reason why they didn't give a torque setting is because these plates, I think it's stamped on the plates what the torque settings are going to be, and maybe they wanted to have some flexibility there. So What it says here is required auxiliary materials, torque wrench 2-10 Nm or screw bit 2.5 millimeter. And there's no other torque setting that I could see here. So one thing is EGW tells you they want you to torque the mounting screws to 15-inch pounds. Remove the optics plate, install the mounting plate, and tighten the screws to manufacturer's recommended torque. And then your mounting screws need to be to 15-inch pounds. So that would be the 2 Nm manufacturer's recommended torque, and then torque our mounting screws to the RMR to 15-inch pounds. At least that's what I'm going to do. But this is much better than the HK manual, at least it tells you. So this is my test fitting, and you can see here there's no play. The co-witness, it's right, the red dot sits right above where, it sits right where on top of the front sight. So you can still use your sights, but you still have your red dot. You can still use the red dot, and then you still have your backup. So the red dot sits right now, I mean, it's not 0 to 100%, but it sits above the front sight. And that way you have a backup use of the suppressor height sights. And if your battery dies or whatever, you can still use the sights, and then you have the red dot. So some people say they don't like having the suppressor style sights in the picture. I like having the best of both worlds, but there's a drawback there where you can still see suppressor sights in your sight picture. So you can either not have that, and if your battery dies, then just try to point and click, or you know, you can have a backup that's in the sight picture. So the next thing we'll do is we'll take this apart and we'll get our thread locker out, and then we'll get everything torqued down. The EGW screws are just hex or Allen. So got some thread locker here, Permatex. Make sure to shake this up really good before you use it in case it's been sitting for a while. Put a couple dots down, clean your screws. You can use any gun cleaner, or I just use rubbing alcohol or acetone you can use, but be careful with acetone because it can mess other stuff up, especially plastics. Make sure the threads in here are clean, so I just went there with a little bit of rubbing alcohol again, and then you just need a real light little bit in the threads here, and then try to be careful setting this down. You don't want to have to get this into your slide and underneath the accessory plate there. Alright, so I got both of those in there. Again, that's a T10 on that side. Now, do you have to have a torque wrench? I suppose that you don't, but if you don't torque these correctly or you don't use Loctite, there is a risk that these can come out under recoil at some point. You're never going to know when. It might loosen up, or it might just give way, and it could cause damage if they're not torqued properly. I had a dirt bike, and so I had this tiny torque wrench that has very small increments, and that came in handy. This is Tecton brand, but you can get one. You know, you can get a 1/4 inch torque wrench, I think for like $15 from Harbor Freight, or if you have to get it from Amazon, you can. You can get this one, Tecton. I think this is a Taiwanese or a Korean brand, so you don't have to run out and get the cheapest Chinese one. You can get something that might. I use this for other things like mounting scopes and even small car parts, so that comes in handy. It helps to have it, at least to know. I mean, it's not the most expensive torque wrench, but I would highly recommend torquing and Loctiting. This blue Loctite comes out pretty easily, so you don't have to worry about, oh man, if I want to change or whatever, you know, I'm going to be stuck with it. I'm going to have to, the red Loctite, you need heat and use a heat gun usually to get it out. So you never want to tighten with your torque wrench. You know, you always want to tighten with something else and then just get the finishing touch with the torque wrench. So you know, usually we would say, like on dirt bikes and making repairs in the field, the tightest you want to go on things that need to be torqued is right here, just holding it in your hand and pushing it. When you go out to the edge like this, again, it's very hard to say what that torque is going to end up being, and you can over torque, you can strip these. That's another problem with a lot of these screws, is the screws are harder than threads on the whatever you're screwing into. And I have broken screws, I have stripped screws, not many, but it does happen to the best of us, and I'm not anywhere close to the best of us, so just get the wrench. See that? See that? That little subtle click means you're at the right torque setting. A little piece of electrical tape, scotch tape, right underneath the battery to give it some tension. Get that on there and then screw her down. Found that I had this Allen bit, and it goes into my torque wrench. And then for this, the EGW instructions say do 15 pounds after you also Loctite, blue Loctite the mounting screws. So 15 pounds. This thing slides to 15 like that, and then we just click away. You have it. You can see that it is slush as flush can get. So I got it on there. I'm trying to see if I can capture the red dot for you to show you. Anyways, there you have it. Long slide VP9, long slide, optics ready, EGW mount. You can get their mounts from their website. Even I think they're a good replacement, high quality replacement for the HK mounts. I will be test firing this shortly and post another video. If you want to see more, please do like and subscribe.